Hi y'all, this is Charity from F.R.O.G Crochet, and I'm going to do our devotion real quick. And it's from Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 14. Heal me, Lord, and I will be healed. Save me, and I will be saved, for you are my praise. That's verse 14 of Jeremiah chapter 17. The Lord can heal you. My father failed me in many ways. After a business bankruptcy in his 40s, he became a bitter man. Instead of learning resiliency, he spent the next 40 plus years wandering in regret. If I try hard enough, can I still hear the loud arguments? Or if I try hard enough, I can still hear the loud arguments between my parents, sometimes ending with my father cursing my mother and beating her. I entered my young adulthood with numerous emotional and mental scars from his dysfunctional behavior. Thankfully, with the consistency of a healthy church, my mother's godly influence, and the example of some mature men in my life, I had good models to follow. Sometimes children are shielded physically from the immediate pain of dysfunctional circumstances as well. But when I was 22 years old, the ache, insecurity of those wounds surfaced. The prophet Jeremiah lived among a people marked by deceit, injustice, and resistance to God's ways. They worshipped at pagan altars, showing the fruit of their stony hearts. Sin ran rampant throughout the land, and God became angry over the ways of his people. Jeremiah spoke the Lord's message, calling the nation of Judah to walk in his ways and embrace his truth. But the word of the Lord was not welcome among them, and they abused and mistreated him. Jeremiah's heart and sometimes his body ached because the people forsook the Lord. Jeremiah pleaded with God for healing that only he could deliver. When I was 22, I discovered this prayer from Jeremiah chapter 17. I began praying almost daily for the Lord to heal the wounds of my father. Several decades later, I can truthfully and joyfully declare that he faithfully answered. I learned that God would be the father I needed. He would mend my heart, rejuvenate my emotions, and make me a godly man who would be a father or faithful husband and father. Today he is my praise. Okay, and then consider reading Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 14 through 18 on your own. And the prayer is, Mender of hearts, I open my heart to you for your divine work. And that is our devotion for today. All right, I wanted to talk to you guys about how to get started. I wish I knew a lot of this when I first was learning how to crochet myself. I just basically, what happened was I seen my sister crocheting and I was like, hey, I want to do that too. Teach me how to do this. And she's like, okay, you just need a hook and some yarn and you know, just go from there. Well, you need more than just that. Uh, you need to know what kind of yarn and what kind of hook and stuff like that. So basically, when I first started out, I believe I used a what they say, I would consider a 4mm crochet hook using Red Heart yarn. And I did like the biggest project ever that I have ever done, and still have not done anything as big as that yet. I came close to doing one not too long ago, that big. But this blanket was like king size, and it was all single crochet because that was all that was taught me. And the only thing that was taught me was to use the back loop only. But we're going to just start with this. All right, I just grabbed Mainstay, one, because it's a cheaper brand of yarn, and two, if you don't think you're gonna, if you just want to try it, I would suggest doing something like that is get you like Mainstay or something like that. It is a lot softer than using um, Red Heart, but also it's cheaper than buying Red Heart as well. Or you can get, if you want, is just find you some secondhand yarn from a thrift store or something like that that is much cheaper. Or you can start with a cotton yarn, which that will be a little bit tough unless you get the I don't know if now I have seen some stores have the Mainstay cotton. Some Walmart stores don't have them. My local Walmart does not. Some of the Joann's has the big twist, and it is a softer cotton. But I would start out with a small project. But I got the Mainstay, and it's 100% acrylic. And you need to make sure, too, one thing as well, is that you're not allergic to any of the fibers that you use. Another thing you need to look for is this right here. This tells you the weight of the yarn. If you're going to knit, that tells you the knitting needle size, which is a 5.5mm or a US 9 knitting needles. For a crochet hook, which is what I do, is a 5.5mm or a US I or a 9, whichever your hook says on there. Some hooks just have the letter. Some of them have the number, like the 9, and then some of them just have the 5.5mm. Now, I don't have any 5.5 with me. I looked at my house. I don't know. I know I've got one somewhere, but I will show you how to look for these. Now, I've got the boy hooks, and a lot of them are going to be right here. Whoop, come on, camera, focus again. There we go. It's going to look like that. Whoa, out of focus again. I don't know what's wrong with you. Alright. My camera does not want to stay focused. Alright, well, you seen on there where it had the H and then the /8. There we go. And then 5 and then 5.0mm. And then you got the name. Sometimes it's just blank. Now, some of your hooks will be on the end here. Now, this is your standard aluminum, hook. And some people like these type of, where it's rounded. Some people like the Susan Bates hooks, which are not. They go straight up. It's a little kind of flat inside. Now, these I'm getting ready to show you are custom made ones that, well, they're the aluminum, but my husband got the handle pieces custom made for me on them. This one is an eye, but now it says 525 on there. It's a 9, and it is an eye. But see, that's some of your older ones or newer. Well, actually, that's a newer one. But some of them are like this. Some of them are 525 or 550. So this one is an eye. You can use that one in that because it does say a 9 or an eye. But see, like this, that's a custom handle that my husband had put on these. This one's a J or a 10. Well, come on. It don't want to focus. Come on, focus again. Please. Come on. There we go. And it's a 5.75 millimeter. So even if this was supposed to, I think that's supposed to be more like a 6, but it does say a J or a 10. So if your pattern says a J or a 10, that would work for it. I have, let's see, I do have this. Now, I would go by what the yarn tells you to use, unless your pattern, if you're reading a pattern, if your pattern tells you otherwise, then use what the pattern tells you. This is a prime, and it's a G. Now I know that this is a 4 millimeter. It doesn't say it on it, but that'll be, let's see, this is one of those ergonomic ones, and it has a little rubber grip. I do like these. I did start out using the aluminum. Now the end of this is a little bit different than the boy, but this one is really good. It's definitely worth what I paid for it. Now, another thing that you will need definitely is a pair of scissors. I just, any standard size, pair of scissors. Some people use smaller ones. I keep this in my project bag that I use to go. I keep a little cylinder thing here. This has actually got my yarn needles. I like to use the metal yarn needles. I don't like using the plastic ones because they bend a lot. But I do have some plastic ones, but I prefer to use the metal ones. And I keep mine in a little thing like this so I don't lose them. Because I have I have lost these several times. So to keep from losing them, I got me this little container. There's also another thing to use that is really good if you don't finish your project all in one day, which I do not have with me, is a stitch marker. I wish I had one with me, but I don't. But that will be for another day, I guess. But those are your basic stuff that you need for starting out. But if you want to just learn, what I would find you a tutorial video that just teaches you how to do your basic stitches. Which is, you might want to learn, you'll need to learn how to do a slip knot, which is how you start your project. Most of your projects is going to get started either with a slip knot or a magic ring. And then you need to learn how to do a chain. Then you'll need to learn how to do the stitches after that. Your basic stitches is going to be a single crochet, a half double crochet, a double crochet, a treble crochet, and then you also have some other stitches which you'll little more into it, which is like a double, treble. You can learn those, but most people use in their patterns use a single crochet, a chain, a half double, or a double. Not a lot of them like to use the treble or a double treble, but you do run across some people that do put those in their patterns. I will do some more tutorials later on what of doing stitches. My next one I'll try to do is teach how to do a slip knot and how to do the chain. So hopefully I can get that done maybe next week. If not, because next week's Christmas, I'll hold off till after Christmas. But anyway, this is basically, I wish I knew this before I started, because like I said, I was using the wrong hook for the yarn that I needed, and I kept splitting the yarn. Now, I'll show you this too. Now, some people like to use the yarn from the outside, which is this one right here. And they do sometimes tuck it in there. This is actually the outside of the yarn. Okay. Now, some of them aren't as easy as this one is. Some of them you have to find it. But this is what they call the center pull. And that is so much easier to start your project from your center pull than it is to have this thing rolling around on the floor. Unless you want to sit and take the time to roll this up into a ball. But you can just easily pull it from here and start using it from there. So, anyway, and some people too, I don't see a die lot on this unless this is the die lot right here. But you do want to try to keep, if you're going to do like a big project, or that might be the die lot right there, that number. Anyway, if you start in doing like a big huge project, you want your die lot numbers the same, even though they're the same color, because it will sometimes have a tendency to have a little bit shade, either lighter or darker, if you mix the two different die lots. I've not run across it as of yet before, but I have seen it, that other people have done it, went got yarn, and they didn't get enough, and they went back and got some more, and it was either a shade darker than what they had started with or a shade lighter. But starting out, I would do small projects, and I would just start practicing. I would just get me like one skein and just find a tutorial that teaches you your basic stitches, and just learn how to do your single crochet and your basic stitches, and learn how, and make sure that they teach you on there how to turn and do the next row, which I will try to do that as well on my next video when I start teaching the single crochet and all that stuff. But I will just teach you basically, the next video will be teaching you how to do the slip knot, a magic ring, and a chain, so that you can at least have those basics. My mom taught me how to do a chain by hand without using a hook, and she basically told me, like, of course I was little, too, so I was very young. She said, if you're willing to sit there and do this by hand and make little chain links like bracelets, kind of like friendship bracelets, if you're willing to sit there and make a bunch of these, then you're willing to sit down and take the time to learn how to crochet. And she's like, if you learn this, I'll teach you how to crochet. She taught me my very first project. It was supposed to be a hat, and it ended up, my stitches were so tight that it ended up being a ball. And she just like, okay, here, let me see that. And she stuffed a bunch of cotton stuff in there and sewed it up and said, here you go. And I was like, what is this? She said, well, it's a ball because you made your stitches so tight that it's not a hat. And I was like, okay. And then she just lost patience with me. So, but she was raising 4 girls at the time, so she really didn't have the time to sit down with me and really go over it. So, and I probably didn't have the patience to sit down with it either. So anyway, I would just start out with doing small projects, and I will be using this yarn for my tutorials, and I'll just keep adding on to it as I go through these tutorials, and that way you can see the different textures and how it'll look as you go on a project. So I'd better get off of here so I can get the rest of my cleaning done. I guess I will talk to y'all later. I hope you have a wonderful and blessed day. Bye, y'all.